Tyler Reddick wins, but unfortunately the story that most people are talking about are the commercials, the camera work, and the fuel mileage. Let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, Corning, California's Tyler Reddick gets win number 6 on his career, win number 3 at 2311, and I think that's the second win for the Jordan brand being on a Cup car, if I'm not mistaken, and it moves him up to 5th in points. We're going to talk about points here in just a minute, but it wasn't without some struggle, because at the end of the race, it looked like McDowell was dominating it until he came down late to make a second block on Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski, oh so close to that, breaking that 107 win streak, but Keselowski, of course, doesn't lift, because you're not going to lift in a situation like that, and McDowell said that he came down too late. But with all that going on, Tyler Reddick was able to take advantage of the big run he had coming, and he was able to get him right there at the line. So it was an exciting finish, and a lot of people did love the finish. A lot of people thought it was really exciting. A lot of Brad Keselowski and Ford fans were bummed out because they thought this was finally going to be the day that Ford broke through. For those fans, unfortunately, that didn't happen, but for everybody else, I think that the finish was enjoyable. It was the rest of the race that I think people had a lot to say about, so let's get into that. And I say we watched the race, but that's not entirely true, because there were so many commercials. I feel like we missed good chunks of the race. In fact, we missed most of the cautions. We came back from break, as usual with Fox. You come back from break, and a caution has happened. So I feel like a good chunk of the race was missed with commercials. And this commercial model is something that I wanted to talk about. This isn't the 90s anymore. This worked in the 90s because we didn't have a better system, right? Everybody had cable. There was a lot of commercials in the 90s, although I don't feel like there was this many commercials in the 90s. But the 90s were a long time ago, man. Like this model that they're still going off of is so dated and antiquated. So there are definitely some things they need to do to improve. I don't care if you keep the same amount of commercials or what, but there's better ways to do it. Starting off with, we could go with side-by-side action like we've seen. Fox does it, but you could do it for every commercial, right? We don't need, in this era, this modern era, we don't need full-screen commercials anymore. Just put the commercial over here to the side and give us our small, tiny little box of the racing that we can watch over here. If the commercial's good enough, you will focus on it. So maybe the advertisement groups need to work on making better commercials. That is one way we could do it. Another way we could do it is take a page out of F1's book where the race is presented by somebody, advertisement free. That would be another option we could go with. I think going forward they could find a way to make that work without question. And another solution that a lot of people were throwing out there, I saw this a lot on social media throughout the race. A lot of people saying, I don't care how much it costs. If I could watch these races without commercials, like if NASCAR provided like an MLB baseball TV or whatever, MLB TV type thing, where you could watch all the races without commercials, people would definitely be willing to pay for that. So if NASCAR did their own broadcast and basically sold them to Fox and NBC or whoever their partners are, but they also had a version where you could opt out of all the commercials, a lot of people, according to social media, are willing to pay for that. So that is another option. But what we definitely can't do is continue to sit on our hands and go by this old 90s style model that we're still using now, because there's no innovation in it. Where are the innovators? In the 90s, there was tons of people innovating. Even though that was the product back then, it was innovative for the time. Now we're stuck on this stale old model, and there's no innovation. They're not doing anything to help out the fans who are watching the race on TV. So going forward, we need some innovation, and we definitely can't have a full screen commercial with less than 10 laps to go in a stage. I think they did the commercial with 5 laps to go, and they came back and we saw the last 2 laps. We can't have that happen again, because that was peak bad, peak idiocy, really. Another thing we can't have is shoddy camera work. Fox is notorious for this. NBC, although they're not 100% better than Fox on all things, I will give them their flowers on the camera work, because NBC's camera work is light years ahead of Fox. Even when we were watching the action, the few moments we actually got to see the race in between the commercials that they were showing, it was terrible camera work. Even the last wreck, the very last wreck, right? We still didn't get a great angle on that last wreck. I don't think anybody saw the full carnage back there of what happened with that. And a bit redundant, but when they did have good angles on wrecks, like when the Toyota cars got together and wrecked each other out, That was after a commercial break, which I've already touched on, but when they had the good camera work, we still didn't get to see it live, so the camera work is also something, not a big shocker here, but Fox needs to work on the camera work. Now on to the race itself. A lot of people were upset with the little bit of the race that we actually got to see. Were upset with the fuel mileage savings. At points in the race, cars were running 10 to 15 miles per hour slower than what a normal top speed would be because they were out there saving fuel. Now look, saving fuel is part of racing. I understand that argument, but there are a couple of things that could be done here. The first thing is the teams that don't want to save fuel need to put the drivers that are saving fuel to the test. To this point, even though it didn't work out for them, even though it ended in tragedy, except for Tyler Reddick, because Tyler Reddick ended up getting the win, Toyota had the right idea to put these guys at a disadvantage that were trying to save fuel. When they made that pit stop and all the Toyotas were lined up and they were running max speed, they were putting those guys saving fuel at a decision. They could no longer save fuel because the Toyotas were going absolute max speed. In fact, I forgot who it was that was almost about to go a lap down, but they were running times almost equal with the leaders by themselves because the leaders were saving gas and the driver that had to make that unscheduled pit stop was not saving gas. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who that was. But yeah, put them at a decision. So like if you got a group of 5 or 6, even 8 cars that just decided, hey, we're not going to save fuel, we're going to make you make a decision, you could go for it and you could put them at a decision so the fuel saving game might not work for them, which is racing. That's what they should have done. So that's the first thing that should have been done. Also, shout out to BJ McLeod because he came there today to win that race and he was never saving fuel. And even though he ran out of fuel and it hurt him there, I just wanted to give a shout out because he was going for it because he knew this was one of the races that he could win. The other thing is NASCAR could get involved, which I lean toward hopefully NASCAR doesn't have to get involved. Hopefully the other teams look at this and see where they could have taken advantage by going for it and pushing the pace and making these other cars, not save fuel. So hopefully they do that. But if NASCAR wants to get involved, they could either, this is from the live stream, so I'm taking some of you guys' ideas. Somebody mentioned make it mandatory 4 tire pit stops every time you come into the pits because that will leave you in there long enough that you might as well just go ahead and fill it full of fuel. So the other thing you could do is make the fuel tank either bigger or smaller, so that would take it away. And my personal opinion is get rid of stage cautions. You can still have the stages, but get rid of the cautions at super speedways. There's that aspect, and somebody else threw the idea of whoever leads, if you lead like 10 laps or something like that, you get like a bonus point. So you could make or somebody threw out there, get a bonus point for leading a lap so that people wouldn't be just complacent laying back there because you could get a whole bunch of bonus points and might offset a wreck or something. Let's say you lead a bunch of laps, but you get wrecked out. You might offset that by leading a bunch of laps. So that's another thing that would encourage guys not to save fuel and go up there and actually try to, race. So, but like I said, saving fuel and fuel strategy is part of racing, but there should be at least 2 different strategies going on at the same time. Everybody saving fuel does make for a boring race, so I understand where everybody was coming from with that. All right, now that we've aired our grievances, let's take a look at the top 10. Tyler Reddick, of course, wins the race. Brad Keselowski, oh so close, coming in there in 2nd place. Noah Gragson, another good run for him. He needed that good run. He finishes in 3rd place. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., out of nowhere there in the Thomas Bagels, number 47 for JTG Doherty, finishing in 4th. Good run for him. Alex Bowman, always on the hot seat, finishes in 5th place, ahead of all of his Hendrick teammates, so good run for him. Anthony Alfredo, 6th place, great run for him. Definitely trying to get his name out there. He is definitely a good talent. So good run for him. William Byron finishes in 7th place, continues his great season. Todd Gilliland, Todd G out there, getting another good run for him, continuing to build upon last year's rookie campaign. Daniel Hemrick, he was up at the front at several points in this race. He ends up getting a nice finish out of all that. And then Harrison Burton definitely needed this 10th place finish for the Wood Brothers, number 21 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Then the rest of the top 16 are going to be Martin Truex Jr. in 11th, Chase Briscoe in 12th, Ross Chastain in 13th, Ryan Preece in 14th. Good run for him. He needed that too. Chase Elliott, 15th, last week's winner, and then Josh Berry in 16th place. And that, of course, is the good race, but you can't have a good race without a bad race. Christopher Bell continues his up-and-down season, finishes in 38th place. He either runs really well or wrecks, it seems like. Denny Hamlin, let's just list off the Toyotas that got in that wreck. Christopher Bell was a separate wreck, but here's the other Toyotas that were in that one. Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Eric Jones. Eric Jones with that scary crash. I don't know, I'm not going to play it because it's a really disturbing audio, but if you want to go find it on X, it's out there. Eric Jones complaining about his back right after that wreck. Super scary. He was released from the Birmingham Medical Center, so he is good to go. They checked him out and all that stuff, but he was definitely in that wreck as well. And then skip over Justin Haley, but John Hunter Nemechek, the other Toyota in that race. So only like 3 Toyotas, I think, were left at the end of this one. And then, of course, 32nd place, Get Loud for McLeod. He was making some noise early on in this one, but ended up running out of fuel, and that cost him his good day. And then Michael McDowell, he was dominating this thing. At the end, it seemed like at least stage 3. You thought he was at least going to get a good finish if he didn't get the win. He ends up in 31st place. Doesn't even make it past the start-finish line after the big one. And another person who had a bad race there, I'm going to throw it out there, is Kyle Busch. He was in that high line. That high line with SVG looked like it was coming. And Kyle Busch jumped in front of it, but whatever, when all of it broke loose, the high line, of course, suffered the most with the big one. And he ends up finishing well back in the pack. And because of that, he is now out of the top 16 in points. Speaking of the top 16 in points, let's take a look at it to see where everything shook out after Talladega. Kyle Larson continues to be your leader. Martin Truex Jr. continues to be in second place. Chase Elliott, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Ty Gibbs are your first 8 there. Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, and Chase Briscoe are 12. Then 13 through 16 are Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, and Chris Buescher. Of course, Chris Buescher would be bumped out because Daniel Suarez here is below them. And you see Suarez there in 18th place. Here are the guys that would sort of, if the season ended today, of course, be on the bubble. Kyle Busch right now would be out, and Christopher Buescher would also be Chris Buescher would be the next one out. So that's interesting. About a quarter of the way plus one race, I want to say, through the regular season, and the points are going to start mattering here. I have full confidence that Kyle Busch will get back in there. RCR has struggled at short tracks, but we know they're good everywhere else. We saw that last year. So I fully expect Kyle Busch to get back in there and make that run, but it is interesting right now that he is sitting out there. And then, of course, you got some big names here, some other former champions, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, sitting right there near that cut line. So the cut line at this point in the season is very, very interesting. In 21st place there in points, Carson Hocevar, he is your rookie points leader as it stands right now as well. Did want to point that out. And Austin Cindric had the most stage points, so you see him right there, 20th in points. So the good day for stage points, I think he had 19 stage points overall. So good day for him as far as that goes. Saved his day because he didn't get the finish he wanted, obviously, but keeps him in the hunt for the points. So he made the most of his stage points that day. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll keep making these things. If you're already subscribed, you know I appreciate you guys as well. If you got a question, comment, or anything you just want to let me know down in the comments, I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. And if you want to help out the channel, visit the merch store. We got hats like this, t-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, and other stuff, I think. So if you want to help us out, visit the merch link. It is down there in the description. And other than that, hope your Monday didn't suck. Peace.